Why do you do this to yourself, Rouga? You don't have to. No one asked you to. You just took it upon yourself like some kind of masochist. Why would anyone in their right mind ever try to analyze a Marvel or DC comic book character? It makes absolutely no sense. How are you supposed to analyze a character that's over 80 years old and had over 150 writers writing for him that does not have a consistent characterization? This was a pretty fucking stupid idea. But here I am, dragging my nutsack across the sandpaper that is life for the good of my audience. So the question becomes, how exactly do I analyze this character? Do I analyze the most consistent version? Do I analyze the version of him written by a specific author? Do I analyze the version of him written in a specific storyline? Or maybe I say fuck it and just analyze one at random. No sorry Bob, I'm gonna do the same thing I always do on this channel, which is whatever the fuck I want. While I will be analyzing his character in this video, I will also be critiquing him quite brutally, because there's a specific version of this character that I fell in love with, and writer after writer tries to come into Marvel and fuck it up. And you better believe I am not letting them get away with that shit. So here it is, my full analysis of the man, the myth, the legend, the Incredible Hulk. Well, sort of. You'll see. You see that right there? That was some motherfucking foreshadowing. Today we're going to be focusing on 3 Hulks in particular. That's going to be Savage Hulk, Green Scar, and Devil Hulk. So, yeah, let's go down the list. If you know Hulk as somebody who speaks in the third person and constantly says Hulk smash, that's Savage Hulk. That's the Hulk that Bruce Banner turns into most of the time. He's the Hulk that appears in pretty much every medium outside of the comic books. If you've seen a movie or a television show or a fucking cartoon with Hulk in it, it's probably Savage Hulk. People think he's dumb. He's not dumb. He's childish. He's basically a giant kid in the body of a green rage monster. He's very emotionally immature and blows up on pretty much anybody who wrongs him. And really, he just wants to be left alone. He doesn't want to be bothered with anybody and sees pretty much everyone, with the exception of very few, as a threat to him. He's generally just as afraid of other people as they are of him. He also has very strong protective instincts, mostly when it comes to women and children. Next, you have Green Scar. This is the Hulk that appeared in the most famous Hulk storyline. This would be Planet Hulk and then eventually World War Hulk. He's pretty much in every way better than Savage Hulk. He's bigger, he's smarter, he's stronger, and he has far greater amounts of rage than Savage Hulk is even capable of. When Savage Hulk shows up, he's very dangerous and can take on like 85% of Marvel heroes. Pretty much everybody but the very top tier of Marvel. But when Green Scar shows up, pretty much nobody can take him on. He's damn near the most powerful hero in all of Marvel Comics, if not the most powerful. He's a far more focused kind of rage than someone like Savage Hulk. Whereas Savage Hulk is like a child throwing a temper tantrum, like any little thing that endangers him or gets him angry, he will lash out of in an uncontrollable fit of rage that will then lead to the destruction of an entire city block as collateral damage. Green Scar is more so a very focused kind of rage. This is a rage that comes from an adult. This is the kind of rage where someone knows exactly what they're angry at and is going specifically to deal with that thing that is making them angry. And really the best way to describe the difference between Green Scar and Savage Hulk is Savage Hulk is immature rage and Green Scar is mature rage. Lastly, you have Devil Hulk, and he's been around for a really long time, but he was always this strange thing that was chained up in the mind of Bruce Banner that could never actually come out and do anything. Like, he's been alluded to on several occasions, but he never really had his own story. That is until the last couple of years where they had the Immortal Hulk storyline, and he took over as the main Hulk of that storyline. He's not as strong as someone like Green Scar, but he's considerably more dangerous. Overall, he's a much darker character, and the storylines that involve him are far more horror-based. He's a far more cruel and brutal character than most other versions of Hulk. So while the other Hulks were different stand-ins for 2 very different types of anger, Devil Hulk is more a stand-in for hatred. He hates the world and many different things about it, and wants to break it down, destroy it, and then rebuild it into something new. And it's not really much of a stretch to say that he's an evil Hulk. So now's the part where that foreshadowing comes back into play. Sorry to say, but you have been bamboozled. This video is actually not an analysis on the Hulk as advertised. It is an analysis on the man, the myth, the legend, Bruce Banner. Because you can't really do an analysis on the Hulk. He's not a full-fledged character. He's just an aspect of this one guy, Bruce Banner's personality. Which is why it aggravates me so much when someone like Kevin Feige comes out and says that the reason why they don't make Hulk movies anymore is because it's so difficult because nobody wants to see Bruce Banner. They just want to see the Hulk. But you can't have a 2-hour movie with just the Hulk running around punching people. He says this kind of stuff as if Bruce Banner is not the interesting person and it's just Hulk. But that's not true. The thing that makes Hulk interesting is how he correlates to Bruce Banner and Bruce Banner's personality. And this is where we get to why I had to go through this Machiavellian plan to bamboozle you guys. Without Bruce Banner, the things that I've just said about Savage Hulk, Green Scar, and Devil Hulk, that's it. That's all there is. There's nothing else to talk about. But with the context of Bruce Banner and what these forms mean for his character, all of a sudden, these three Hulk characters become vastly more interesting. Savage Hulk isn't just some immature rage monster who wants to be left alone. He's Bruce Banner's childhood trauma given form. You see, Bruce Banner's mind does not work the same way normal people's does. His brain is fucked 6 ways a Sunday. Bruce is a brilliant guy who has been through ridiculous levels of trauma. Trauma that has turned him from this brilliant guy who wants to help people into kind of a monster. Bruce Banner is not a good person, but he really, really wants to be. So instead of breaking down and losing his goddamn mind, turning into some kind of super genius serial killer, his brain fractures to deal with the trauma that he's dealt with and creates new personalities. In the Marvel Universe, he's known as the man with the most serious case of dissociative identity disorder on planet Earth. It's been said that he has literally thousands of different identities in his head that he could swap to at any point when he needs him. I think a lot of people don't realize this. You see, Bruce Banner is not the only person who turns into a Hulk. There's actually several different Hulks. General Ross, Betty Ross, Blonsky, Rick, Jennifer Walters. I can continue. There's quite a few different Hulk-like characters. But Bruce is the only one that has a completely different identity depending on what Hulk he turns into. Because the multiple identities is not a trait of his Hulkism. It's a trait of he himself. He has a mental illness that gives him these multiple identities. And they were all created by Bruce Banner's mind to protect him from the inevitable endpoint that he would have if they didn't exist, which is that all this trauma would be so heavily bared on his soul that he would essentially turn into a supervillain. For instance, the reason why Savage Hulk goes absolutely berserk anytime he gets angry or upset and just straight up wants to be left alone is because he's a personality that was created by Bruce Banner's mind as a child to deal with the trauma of his father constantly abusing him. As a child, subconsciously, the conclusion that Bruce Banner came to is the best way to not be harmed by his father is to stay away and lash out anytime anything gets close. His father was also extremely abusive towards his mother, which explains why Savage Hulk is so protective over women and children, and doesn't generally care about men all that much. And while different writers will succeed at this at different skill levels, you can do this with pretty much every form that Bruce has. They're all directly tied to him and his own personal traumas. Green Scar was created by an adult Bruce Banner to deal with the traumas that he dealt with through his adult years. The death of his wife Betty Ross, the death of his second wife Kiara, the loss of one of his sons, the betrayal by his friends and being set off-world, being made into an outcast by the entire world and chased down by General Ross for several years. All of these things created traumatic events for Bruce Banner to deal with that Savage Hulk was not enough to defend him against anymore. So his mind created another personality, which was Green Scar, who is a personality that can deal with these things for him. Now, this version of the Hulk does not necessarily want to be just left alone, and he doesn't lash out at anything around him. This version of Hulk even goes as far as to create an entire Hulk family. People who he knows he can trust to stay around him at all times, who he defends and protects, while having a massive distrust for anybody outside of that circle. This Hulk goes out of his way to find the things that are causing this pain to Bruce Banner and stop them, which is what led to World War Hulk. If you look at the story, Green Scar does things like acquire a wife, have some children, make tons of lifelong friends. He does the things that Bruce wants and that would make Bruce happy, while casting out all the things that are hurting Bruce in his normal life. And all of these traumas building up over the years, and basically just constantly shitting on Bruce Banner throughout his entire life, led to the creation of Devil Hulk, which is the deep-seated hatreds that exist within Bruce Banner. Bruce really does not like the world. He blames the world for all of the problems that he has had, understandably so. And Devil Hulk's entire existence is to break down the world and build one that Bruce can live in comfortably. His sole existence is to get rid of the things that Bruce hates and that is making his life harder. And again, this is the case with every single personality that Bruce Banner has. But the character goes even deeper than that, because there are multiple versions of Hulks that don't like each other. And this is also an extension of how Bruce feels himself. Green Scar does not like Devil Hulk. Green Scar, the representation of the adult anger and trauma that Bruce Banner has had over the years, does not like Bruce's hatred for the world, because Bruce himself does not like his hatred for the world. He doesn't want to feel that hatred. Green Scar disappears from comics for like 10 years. And then when Bruce finally sees him again, like inside of his own mind, he realizes that the reason reason why you haven't seen him is because he's been spending all that time chaining down Devil Hulk in Bruce's brain, making sure that he doesn't get out. Again, all for the protection of Bruce Banner. When Hulk is written properly as a character, you can look at all of them, how they interact with each other and how they interact with the world around them, as metaphors for what Bruce Banner is currently going through in the story. So earlier in the video, I said that Bruce Banner is a bad person. He's kind of a monster. He knows this, doesn't want to be this way, and his brain creates all of these other personalities to stop him from acting on his most fucked up thoughts. At one point, Bruce gets just sick and tired of being with Hulk, because Bruce doesn't really like Hulks, understandably, since all the Hulks are just different variations of his trauma and pain. So he goes to Dr. Doom to have them removed. This is successful, and Hulk is separated from Bruce Banner as two totally separate entities. They shake hands and everything and go down their different paths. You know, there's kind of a bit of respect there, but also a bit of hatred. Bruce's relationship with the Hulks is pretty complex. On one hand, they're all pieces of himself, so he does love them to an extent. But on the other hand, he does hate the parts of him that cause him pain. So it's sort of a give and take kind of thing. It's a pretty complex relationship he has with them. Anyway, after a couple of months of not having any Hulks inside of his mind anymore, Hulk runs into him again on this island where basically it turns into the island of Dr. Moreau, where he's experimenting on people and torturing people and murdering people. In this storyline, we see what happens to Bruce Banner when he doesn't have other Hulks to essentially express these feelings and to actually deal with this pain that he has. Him removing the Hulks from his mind, it would be the same thing as if a normal person were to just not deal with their trauma and allow them to tear you down into a far worse person than you could be. Bruce goes fucking insane. He turned into the crazed supervillain that he knows he could be. And this is how you properly write Bruce Banner and Hulk as a character. If you write for Hulk and you understand his character, you do not just write him as a normal guy who turns into a monster. You're missing the point. Bruce Banner is a super fucked up individual, and at any moment he could slip and become a fucking monster. And the Hulk variations that he transforms to are all created for the sole purpose of protecting him and keeping him from going down this dark path that he really doesn't want to go down. Readers of the comics know Hulk is not the monster. Bruce is. Hulk, in whatever form he comes in, is the hero keeping the monster at bay. Bruce Banner is an endlessly fascinating character that adaptations of him just refuse to even attempt to get right. Now, I know that I'm not alone in absolutely despising the MCU version of Hulk. Like, even people who don't read the comics don't like this version of Hulk. But funny enough, they actually did do him right for one scene. The very first scene with Mark Ruffalo in the very first Avengers movie, where he meets Black Widow for the first time, is the only scene in the entire series where his character is done justice. It's the only scene where Bruce Banner, not the Hulk, is looked at as a monstrous human being. He scares the living shit out of Black Widow. He's creepy and weird, and he has this strange aura that you just know this guy's dangerous and he can go off at any point. He starts toying with Black Widow's emotions, and he's smart enough to call out a character who's a master of manipulation on her manipulation tactics. Bruce has more in common with Jeffrey Dahmer or Hannibal Lecter than he does with this fucked up version we see in the later MCU movies. He's not some goofy, jokey guy who's in a buddy cop movie with a big green monster. It is far more complicated than that and infinitely more interesting. And it is a fucking travesty what the movies have done to him. And that's going to be all for me today. I know I could have gone over far more Hulk forms than just these three and talked about them, but like I said, he has thousands. And these three are really the most important ones to his character. Like, Joe Fixit isn't really that important to Bruce Banner's character as a whole. So I stuck to these three. But if you guys really do want a part 2 where I sort of go into more depth of different forms and how they relate to his character, I guess I could do that if people want it enough. If this shit gets 500 likes, I'll do a second one. How about that? But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Also, hit the little bell icon because you won't get notifications for my videos if you don't hit the bell icon. And y'all be safe out there, you hear?